Greetings. My friends call me Rip. You should too. This is Volume 3 of my personal grimoire. Just another cosmic observation. See for yourself how time is the ancient temporal deity all mankind worships. So assume a pious posture. This is heresy of the highest order. After this, you won't ever look at your watch the same way again. As usual, light 'em if you got 'em. Time, humanity's secret universal orthodoxy. Tonight, I want to show you something hidden in plain sight. Something so old, so ordinary, so familiar that we stopped seeing it altogether. I want to show you the moment humanity gave its secret God a face. For most of our prehistory, time was divided. The day belonged to the sun, the night belonged to the darkness. Two worlds, two hidden pulses, two mysterious rulers. In the beginning, no single instrument measured either half of existence. If humanity vanished and non-human archaeologists explored the ruins and analyzed the remains, they would conclusively determine that humanity shared a common, unifying deity. No matter where on the planet and beyond any trace of humanity are found, the icon of their faith is found. The deepest jungle to the highest towers all observed the same chronological rituals and sacrifices. In the early dawning ages, man quite naturally and instinctively began dividing the daylight. The first real clock in human history was a human hand held vertically against the horizon to measure the remaining time before sunset. This prehistoric gesture is the earliest known method that satisfies every functional requirement of a clock. A person extended their arm fully, stacked their fingers horizontally, and counted how many finger widths of sky remained between the sun and the horizon. Each finger representing a repeatable, quantized unit of time, roughly 10 to 15 minutes. A full set of 4 equaled about an hour. The natural consequences were immediate and dramatic. Being caught too far from shelter after nightfall could be exceedingly treacherous. Knowing exactly how long one had left to get into a nocturnal ambush perch would be advantageous. This global synchronization propelled man to greater efficiencies. Without a shot being fired in protest or resistance, everyone began raising their hands to the horizons in homage. The fixed tempo, or static worship. Clock number 2 is the first automatic clock. It represents the transition from manual, body-based time estimations to a stable, externalized instrument anchored in the environment. Where clock number 1 relied on the human hand as a movable measuring device, clock number 2 replaces the body with a vertical post, a phallus, and a set of fixed ground markers that track the sun's shadow across the day. This configuration produces the first repeatable, non-bodily time grid, a system in which the observer no longer supplies the measuring tool, only the interpretation. The stones or markers arranged around the post establish consistent reference points, enabling a community to share a common temporal framework independent of individual physiology. The shift from the hand measure method to a permanent phallic no-mom installation marks a fundamental change in the social and cognitive status of timekeeping. The manual gesture is personal, portable, and ephemeral. It exists only when performed. A fixed gnomon is public, stable, and enduring, transforming the time measurement into a shared environmental feature. Once the instrument is anchored in the ground, it becomes a site rather than an action, a place where time can be consulted, taught, and standardized. In many early cultures, These installations evolved into formalized structures or precincts, effectively functioning as proto-temples of solar observation, where the measurement of time became a communal practice rather than an individual technique. This transition establishes the architectural and ritual lineage that later leads to formal sundials, calendric monuments, and ultimately the institutionalization of time as a collective obedience system. The emergence of nocturnal worship. Once daytime timekeeping became anchored to a fixed gnomon and its associated horizon markers, communities faced a structural asymmetry. The system provided reliable temporal information only during daylight. Nighttime remained unmeasured except through instinct, environmental cues, or the rough duration of a fire or ember. This gap produced the next evolutionary step, the development of intentional nocturnal observance, in which individuals or groups monitored the sky, stars, or controlled light sources to maintain continuity with the daytime temporal framework. These practices were not yet clocks in the mechanical sense, but they represented the first attempts to extend standardized time into the dark hours. From observation to nocturnal ritual. With the development of advanced fires, new concepts allowed for a truly novel instrument to measure the various passages of dark time. The third clock is the hourglass. It immediately revolutionized nocturnal observance. As these nighttime practices stabilized, they shifted from ad hoc observation to structured, repeatable procedures. Rising stars, lunar positions, and the controlled burn of torches or marked candles became obsolete reference points that the communities had relied on. In many early societies, this monitoring took on a formal character. Specific individuals were assigned to maintain the fire, track the stellar positions, or announce the passing of segments of the night. Over time, these activities became embedded in cultural routines, not as religious rites per se, but as practical nocturnal rituals that ensured continuity of temporal order when the primary daytime instrument was inactive. This marks the first sustained effort to create a unified 24-hour temporal system, bridging the gap between the fixed daytime temple of the gnomon and the later emergence of autonomous mechanical clocks. The mechanical 12-hour dial as the final unifying countenance. The fourth clock. With the emergence of autonomous mechanical clocks, timekeeping undergoes a decisive consolidation. Early systems, the manual hand measurement, the fixed gnomon, and the nocturnal observation rituals, each addressed only a portion of the daily cycle. They provided localized, domain-specific solutions, one for the daylight, one for the night. The mechanical clock, by contrast, introduces a single, continuous temporal framework that operates independently of environmental conditions. Its 12-hour dial becomes the first instrument capable of representing the entire diurnal cycle in a unified, repeatable format. This marks the transition from fragmented temporal practices to a fully integrated system. The dial as the stable symbol of temporal order. The circular 12-hour face becomes the definitive visual abstraction of this unification. Unlike earlier devices, which required interpretation of shadows, stars, or combustion or displacement rates, the mechanical dial presents time as a fixed, standardized surface, readable by any observer at any moment. Its geometry encodes both halves of the day into a dual cycle, eliminating the historical divisions between daytime and nighttime timekeeping. As a result, the dial functions not only as a mechanism for measurement, but as a shared symbolic interface through which communities coordinate activity, regulate behavior, and maintain temporal continuity. In this sense, it becomes the culminating face of the unified temporal system, the stable, enduring representation of the abstract order that earlier practices only approximated. In the dawning ages, human beings built something unprecedented, a machine that did not care whether it was noon or midnight, a machine that ticked in the darkness, struck in the daylight, and kept turning long after the sun had set. The face of God. On its front, for the first time in history, we placed a 12-hour dial, a perfect circle divided into 12 equal parts, 12 marks, 12 stations, 12 witnesses. This was not a decoration. This was not a convenience. This was the moment time itself became visible, the moment the abstract became the architectural, the moment the unseen force that governs every life finally acquires a face. Because if time is humanity's unspoken, universal God, the one power every culture obeys, the one law no one escapes, the one authority that needs no temple, then the 12-hour clock face is that God's first icon. It unified day and night. It synchronized strangers. It ordered cities. It commanded behavior. It rang the hours like a liturgy. And we obeyed. We still obey. Every glance at a clock is a tiny act of worship, a moment of submission to the same circular face our ancestors raised on towers and listened to in the dark. So when you look at a clock, not the digital numbers, but the circle, the dial, the 12 marks, you are looking at the oldest shared religion on earth. Not a religion of belief, but a religion of obedience. Not a God of myth, but a God of measurement. And that face, that simple, perfect, 12-fold circle, is the face we gave it. The face of time, the face of order, the face of the only God humanity ever truly shared, the face of God. Well, class, this observation concludes Volume 3 of my symbiotic, cyclical, binary cosmology model. For today, the face of God. I do hope that you dug it just as much as I did, grinding it all out for you. Hopefully, it has informed and inspired someone. Personally, I can't wait to see what all this compels others to finally notice, and still others to finally measure correctly. Time again for you all to freely discuss this among yourselves a while. I will see you all again for the next volume. God bless and rest in pieces. Class dismissed.